I picked up another photograph and read the dedication, which was in a bold, forward slanting hand. To you until death, Isabella. Poor Isabella Seymour. I feel a special sympathy for Isabella Seymour. Round of face and inclined to plumness, she wore a dress which was too short for the fashions of those days. She was not, as he had described her, exactly a bronze statue, but there was manifest good nature in her face and an optimistic outlook on life. He smiles. She too is smiling. He said she was the wife of a successful surgeon, the mother of two daughters and a son. She had had 11 years of happy married life, regularly going to church every Sunday morning and participating in charitable organizations. Then she met him and discovered deep within herself dark areas that had previously been closed. Despite everything, she left him a letter in which she said, if there's a God in heaven, I am sure he will look with sympathetic eye upon the rashness of a poor woman who could not prevent happiness from entering her heart, even if it meant a violation of convention and the wounding of a husband's pride. May God forgive me, and may he grant you as much happiness as you have granted me. I heard his voice on that night, darkly rising and falling, holding neither sadness nor regret. If the voice contained any emotion, then it was a ring of joy. I heard her saying to me in an imploring voice of surrender, I love you. And there answered her voice a weak cry from the depths of my consciousness calling on me to desist, but the summit was only a step away, after which I would recover my breath and rest. At the climax of our pain there passed through my head clouds of old, far-off memories, like a vapor rising up from a salt lake in the midst of the desert. When her husband took the stand as a witness in the court, all eyes were on him. He was a man of noble features and gait. His gray head had dignity, while his whole bearing commanded respect. He was a man who, placed against me in the scales, would outweigh me many times over. He was a witness for the defense, not the prosecution. Fairness demands, he said to the court, over which reigned utter silence, that I say that my wife Isabella knew she had cancer. In the final period before her death, she used to suffer from severe attacks of depression. Several days before her death, and she confessed to me her relationship with the accused. She said she had fallen in love with him and that there was nothing she could do about it. All through her life with me, she had been the model of a true and faithful wife. In spite of everything, I feel no bitterness within myself, neither against her nor against the accused. I merely feel a deep sadness at losing her. There is no justice or moderation in the world. I feel bitterness and hatred for after all those victims he crowned his life with yet another one. Husna bint Mahmud, the only woman I have ever loved. She killed poor Wad Rayez and killed herself because of Mustafa Said. I picked up a photograph in a leather frame. This was clearly Anne Hammond, despite the fact she was wearing an Arab robe and a headdress. The dedication under the picture was in shaky Arabic writing, from your slave girl, Suzanne. It was a lively face, exuding such exuberant good health that the picture could hardly contain it. There was a dimple in each cheek, and the lips were full and relaxed. The eyes glowed with curiosity. All this was apparent in the picture, despite the years that must have passed since it was taken. Unlike me, she yearned for tropical climes, cruel suns, purple horizons. In her eyes I was a symbol of all these hankerings of hers. I am south that yearns for the north and the ice. She owned a flat in Hampstead overlooking the heath, which she would go to from Oxford at weekends. We would spend Saturday night at my place and Sunday night at hers, and sometimes she would stay on over Monday, sometimes for the whole week. Then she began absenting herself from the university for a month at a time, then two, until she was sent down. She used to bury her face under my armpit and breathe me into herself, as though inhaling some narcotic smoke. Her face would be puckered with pleasure. I love your sweat. she would say, as though intoning rites in a temple. I want to have the smell of you in full, the smell of rotting leaves in the jungles of Africa, the smell of the mango and the pawpaw and tropical spices, the smell of rains in the deserts of Arabia. She was an easy prey. I had met her following a lecture I gave in Oxford on Abu Nuwas. I told them that Umar Khayyam was nothing in comparison with Abu Nuwas. I read them some of his poetry about wine in a comic oratorical style, which I claimed was how Arabic poetry used to be recited in the Abbasid era. In the lecture, I said that Abu Nuwas was a Sufi mystic and that he had made of wine a symbol with which to express all his spiritual yearnings, that the longing for wine in his poetry was really a longing for self obliteration in the divine, all errant nonsense with no basis of fact. However, I was inspired that evening and found the lies tripping off my tongue like sublime truths. Feeling that my elation was communicating itself to my audience, I lied more and more extravagantly. After the lecture, they all crowded around me, retired civil servants who had worked in the East, old women whose husbands had died in Egypt, Iraq, and the Sudan, men who had fought with Kitchener and Allenby, Orientalists and officials in the Colonial Office and the Middle East section of the Foreign Office. Suddenly, I saw a girl of 18 or 19 rushing towards me through the ranks of people. She put her arms round me and kissed me. "You are beautiful beyond description," she said, speaking in Arabic, "and the love I have for you is beyond description." With an emotion the violence of which frightened me, I said, "At last I have found you, Suzanne. I searched everywhere for you and was afraid I would never find you. Do you remember? How can I forget our house in Karkh in Baghdad on the banks of the river Tigris in the days of Al Ma'mun?" she said with an emotion no less intense than mine. "I too have followed your footsteps across the centuries, but I was certain we would find each other. And here you are, my darling Mustafa, unchanged since we parted." It was as if she and I were on a stage surrounded by actors who were performing minor roles. I was the hero and she the heroine. The lights went down, darkness reigned all around us, and she and I remained alone in the middle of the stage with a single light trained upon us. Though I realized I was lying, I felt that somehow I meant what I was saying and that she too, despite her lying, was telling the truth. It was one of those rare moments of ecstasy for which I would sell my whole life. A moment in which before your very eyes lies are turned into truths, history becomes a pimp, and the jester is turned into a sultan. Still in the exuberance of that dream, she took me to London in her car. She drove with terrifying speed and from time to time would let go of the driving wheel and put her arms round me. "How happy I am to have found you at last," she shouted. "I am so happy I wouldn't care if I died this very instant." We stopped at pubs on the way, sometimes drinking cider, sometimes beer, red wine, white wine, and sometimes we drank whiskey, and with every glass I would quote to her from the poetry of Abu Nuwas. I quoted, "Does it not please you the earth is awaking? That old virgin wine is there for the taking. Let's have no excuse. Come enjoy this delight. Its mother is green, its sire black as night. Make haste. Karkh's gardens hang heavy with bloom, safe and unscathed from war's blighting doom." I also quoted to her the lines, "Full many a glass clear as the lamp of heaven did I drink, over a kiss or in promise of a tryst would keep. So matured it was by time that you would think beams of light out of the sky did seep." Then I quoted, "When the man of war his knights for war deploys, and death's banner calls alike to gray beards and to boys, when fires of destruction rage and battle starts, we, using our hands as bows, with lilies as our darts, turn war to revelry and still the best of friends we stay. When on their drums they beat, we on our lutes do play, to young men who death in pleasure count a sacrifice divine. While fair cup bearer, subject of our strife, restores to us the plundered wine, so insistent he, scarce a glass goes empty, then it's filled again. Here a man reels drunkenly, there another by excess is slain. This is true war, not a war that between man and man brings strife. It is with wine we kill, and our dead with wine we bring to life. And so it was with us. She moved by poetry and drink, feeding me with sweet lit lies, while I wove for her intricate and terrifying threads of fantasy. She would tell me that in my eyes she saw the shimmer of mirages in hot deserts, that in my voice she heard the screams of ferocious beasts in the jungle, and I would tell her that in the blueness of her eyes I saw the faraway shoreless seas of the north. In London, I took her to my house, the den of lethal lies that I had deliberately built up, lie upon lie, the sandalwood and incense, the ostrich feathers and ivory and ebony figurines, the paintings and drawings of forests of palm trees along the shores of the Nile, boats with sails like doves' wings, sun setting over the mountains of the Red Sea, camel caravans wending their way along sand dunes on the borders of the Yemen, baobab trees in Kordofan, naked girls from the tribes of the Zandi, the Noor and the Shuluk fields of banana and coffee on the equator, old temples in the district of Nubia, Arabic books with decorated covers written in ornate Kufic script, Persian carpets, pink curtains, large mirrors on the walls, and colored lights in the corners. She knelt and kissed my feet. "You are Mustafa, my master and my lord," she said, "and I am Suzanne, your slave girl." And so in silence each one of us chose his role, she to act the part of the slave girl, and I that of the master. She prepared the bath, then washed me with water in which she had poured essence of roses. She lit the joss sticks and the sandalwood in the Maghrib brass brazier hanging in the entrance. She put on the abba and headdress while I stretched out on the bed, and she massaged my chest, legs, neck, and shoulders. "Come here," I said to her imperiously. "To hear is to obey, O master," she answered me in a subdued voice. While still in the throes of fantasy, intoxication, and madness, I took her, and she accepted, for what happened had already happened between us 1,000 years ago. They found her dead in her flat in Hampstead, having gassed herself. They also found a note saying, "Mr. Saeed, God damn you." I put back Anne Hammond's picture in its place to the left of the photograph of Mustafa Saeed standing between Mrs. Robinson and her husband, on which the dedication at the bottom read, "To dear Muzi, Cairo, April 17th, 1913. It seems that she used to use Muzi as a pet name, for in her letters she also refers to him by it. Mustafa Saeed, though frowning, looks a mere child in the picture. Mrs. Robinson stands to his left, her arm round his shoulders, while her husband's arm embraces the two of them, and both he and his wife are smiling naturally and happily. Their faces are those of young people who have not yet reached their 30s. Despite everything, Mrs. Robinson's love for him did not waver. She attended the trial from beginning to end and heard every word. Yet in her letter to me she said, "I cannot express the extent of my gratitude to you for having written to me about dear Muzi. Muzi was, for my husband and me, the dearest of people. Poor Muzi. He was a tortured child, yet he brought boundless happiness to the hearts of my husband and me. After that painful business and his leaving London, I lost touch with him, and though I made every effort to re-establish contact, I failed. Poor Muzi. What slightly lightens the pain of losing him is the knowledge that he spent the last years of his life happily amongst you, and that he married a good wife and had 2 sons. Please give my love to Mrs. Saeed. Let her think of me as a mother, and if there's anything I can do for her and her two dear children, tell her not to hesitate to write to me. How happy I'd be if they all came and spent the next summer holidays with me. I am living here alone in the Isle of Wight. Last January I traveled to Cairo and visited my husband's grave. Ricky had a great love for Cairo, and fate decreed that he should be buried in the city he loved more than any other in the world. I am keeping myself busy writing a book about our life, about Ricky, Muzi, and me. They were both great men, each in his own way. Ricky's greatness lay in his ability to bring happiness to others. He was somebody who was happy in the real sense of the word. He exuded happiness to everyone he came into contact with. Muzi had the mind of a genius, but he was unstable. He was incapable of either accepting or giving happiness other than to those he really loved and was loved by, like Ricky and me. I feel that love and duty require me to tell people the story of those two great men. The book will actually be about Ricky and Muzi because I did nothing of note. I shall write of the splendid services Ricky rendered to the Arabic culture, such as his discovery of so many rare manuscripts, the commentaries he wrote on them, and the way he supervised the printing of them. I shall write about the great part played by Muzi in drawing attention here to the misery in which his countrymen live under our colonial mandate. And I shall write in detail about the trial and shall clear his name of all suspicion. I shall be grateful if you'd send me anything left behind by Muzi, which would be of assistance to me in writing this book. Perhaps Muzi told you he'd made me trustee of his affairs in London. A certain amount of money has accumulated from royalties, from some of his books, and from translation rights on others, which I shall forward on to you directly if you let me have the address of the bank to which you want me to transfer it. In this connection, let me thank you very much for accepting to look after dear Muzi's family. Please write to me regularly and tell me their news. Also send me a photo of them in your next letter. Yours sincerely, Elizabeth.